Howdy, my name's Scott, and my whole life I've had this feeling that these fuckers at the top, they're getting richer and richer and richer, and the rest of us are just hurting. We're having a hard time getting by, making ends meet. I remember the first time I was able to put a name to one of these specific fuckers at the top. In 2007, I lost my house to Deutsche Bank. 2 years later, the CEO of that bank, Joseph Ackerman, he made $13.8 million. It chaps my ass that the house that I built for my family ended up a part of his paycheck. I don't know about you, but I'm done with these guys like Joseph Ackerman hiding in their mansions, hiding behind closed door meetings, in country clubs with crooked politicians. You know, it's about time that we pulled them out and showed the world who they really are, that we reveal the truth about how they operate and how their riches and their wealth is coming out of our pockets and off the sweat of our brows and off of our broken backs. So I want to welcome you to Dishonor, where we honor the strength and the grit, the dignity, the pain of poor and working white men. And we uncover the dishonor of these fuckers at the top, billionaires and multimillionaires that use their money and power to keep the rest of us down. Dishonor is a production of Punch Up. We're building a home where poor and working white men can come together from across the country to join in the work of freedom and justice for all. If you like what you hear, come on over to our website at punch-up.org, sign up, become a member. We'd love to have you. On today's show, we're going to be talking to my friend Michael Harrington, who's from Madison County, Kentucky, and he's also a member of Punch Up. And thanks for being here, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Michael had an eviction in 2022, and since then you've been organizing for tenants' rights in the area. So tell us a little bit about you.
I grew up in the mountains in East Tennessee. And we grew up, really broke. Housing was always tough, but over the past several years, it has been fucking bananas. And that's contributed to like a wall-to-wall shelter crisis as well, with a bunch of our neighbors who don't have a place to sleep inside. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have one neighbor that we work with very closely. His name's Trey. He lives on a bus.
I've slept on the street, I've slept on the ground, I've slept in tents. I started the first tent city in Berea, and my idea was simple. You guys are all scattered out here doing this and that, wherever. If we group up, set up our tents, and we work together as a unity, we can help one another survive a little bit better.
It's been a month since the Safer Kentucky Act became law. The sweeping crime legislation has a direct impact on the homeless community.
In 2024, the state of Kentucky picked up this copy and paste piece of legislation that basically said we're going to do wall-to-wall criminal justice reform. But what it really meant was let's get harsher on everybody. And some of the folks that it really targeted the most were tenants and homeless folks.
If they're pouring all this money into trying to enforce this on that level, they can put money into making a homeless shelter.
Trey uses his bus, and whenever he's able to scrape up some gas, and he's giving rides to other people who are sleeping in encampments outdoors, back and forth to the center, helping people connect with resources and supplies, and using his bus to do that. Also letting some other folks stay, on his bus with him overnight and stuff like that if they don't have a place to go.
That's what God wants, for real. Yeah. He wants us to love our brothers. We're supposed to look out for one another. We're supposed to, Like when I did Tent City, I thought us working together would be a good situation, and it was. My stance is this: if I've got the means and able to, I don't mind. If I got it, we got it. That's the way I look at it. Lexington, they're doing a census of the homeless situation. Over 1,000 juveniles without parents are on the street fending for themselves. 1,000 juveniles, and that's unheard of. It's sad. You know, Lexington police is not wanting to put them in jail, but should they put them in jail on it, there's a $250 fine that comes with it. And that they would hold them in jail and allow them to work while they was there to work that $250 off. Look, I've been around turnips before. I've cut them and everything. I've squeezed the shit out of them. Ain't never got no blood out of one. Yep. These people ain't got nothing now. How in the hell do they expect them to get $250 to pay for a fine for a situation they can't help in the first place? So there's got to be a more proactive solution to the problem. Instead of making this an illegal thing, let's build more homeless shelters.
I'm learning about your neighbors, and I appreciate you sharing about your neighbors. You know, Trey, all of what they're experiencing right now, some of which you've experienced in different pieces, some of which I've experienced. You know, I've slept under bridges. You know, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I've been there, and I'm wondering about why is the wrong word. I'm wondering about who's doing this, because this stuff isn't just happening in a vacuum. You know, people are getting chewed up in a system, but that system is attached to people who have names and they have addresses.
Yeah.
So where's this one coming from?
Yeah. So Joe Lonsdale.
Joe Lonsdale. How did you come across good old Joe, and what has he got to do with all this?
So glad to be sitting with you, Michael. I appreciate your work so much. I'm Kent Gilbert. I'm the pastor of Union Church, the founding church of Berea, Kentucky.
This is something that's impacting Kentuckians and my neighbors who I really care about. I felt really heartbroken and also angry. And to think about, like, this didn't even come from Kentucky or have anything to do with Kentuckians. It was something that somebody very wealthy who doesn't know Kentuckians that really wanted this. Like, do you remember kind of when you first heard about, like, Cicero and who they were, what they were doing?
Why would anybody make this a multi-million-dollar effort? Because that's what they spend. Cicero spends millions of dollars to lobby legislators to sell this at all these different places. They commission all these studies, which I think are suspect at best. They ought to have some knowledge of your local setting. How do you know a good idea? It ought to be including the experience and the needs of those who are most affected, not the experience and the needs of billionaires who live far away on yachts. Right? I mean, yeah, I'm sure that people like Lonsdale might very well benefit if he can redirect a whole bunch of government resources to subsidize his extravagant lifestyle. But why would anybody want to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to just punish people who are down on their luck?
Most of us are one paycheck away from eviction. And so when we're talking about Bruce and Trey and these folks on the street, it's like, man, you could be there real easy. You know, it could happen real easy. We are so close. That precariousness is true for so many of us. You know, and yet we're willing to support shit like this.
Who do you got more in common with, Trey and Bruce or Joe Lonsdale?
Yeah. So what about Joe?
There's a think tank based in Austin, Texas, called the Cicero Institute that Joe Lonsdale is involved with.
It's his baby, though, right?
Yeah, it's his baby.
Like he's not just on the board.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah,
said, I'm gonna create something.
I'm gonna make this thing, and its whole entire purpose is to write up really harsh legislation that targets homeless folks especially, and poor people more broadly. And what it says, the solution to homelessness is jail. And if you ain't got a place to be inside because you're poor, well, where you need to be is behind bars.
We just said, these people have names and they have addresses, but as far as I understand it, Joe Lonsdale has 6 addresses. And I'm not, last time I checked, I can only live in one place.
Yep.
So I'm wondering what's up with this guy with 6 addresses. Does he have any idea what it is like to actually live paycheck to paycheck? Does he have any idea what it's like to not be able to make ends meet?
Yep.
Does he know what the impact of these policies is on real people? All right, so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into who Joe is, how he operates through Cicero to make homelessness a crime in Kentucky. Like, how does that work? And while we break this all down, I just want us all to remember that we're focusing on Joe today, but the way that he uses his money and power is really common. These are the same tools and tricks that are used by a bunch of these fuckers at the top. And we'll hear about more of them on future episodes. But for today, we're going to be talking about Joe. Just keep in mind, he's not the only one doing this shit. What do we mean when we say fuckers at the top? We're specifically talking about billionaires and multimillionaires that are using their power, their money, and their influence to keep the rest of us down. And we're also lumping in with that group the politicians who are enabling it, many of whom are also in the same tax bracket. We might be thinking of Musk and Bezos and Gates or Buffett, but there are thousands of others of these guys, like Joe Lonsdale, who are making the lives of poor and working people painful and hard. According to multiple journalists, as well as his own comments, Joe lives in an enormous 11-bedroom home in Austin, Texas, and owns several other homes as well. On paper, he describes his net worth at over $1 billion, and he's very comfortable with being a billionaire. I'm going to let Joe speak in his own words so you understand where this guy's coming from. One of the questions he likes to ask is, why go after billionaires? Are billionaires the root problem? He says, I wouldn't want to live in a country that didn't allow people to become billionaires. Another thing he said, in general, there's a lot of billionaires who are creating a lot of awesome things and who do have a sense of duty. So I'm wondering, a duty to whom? Does his sense of duty include you? I don't think it includes me.
We're constantly hearing from all sources about how America's becoming more unequal, about how it's just so horrible for the least well off, about how the top are taking everything. And you guys do a very kind of scholarly analysis of this and say that's wrong.
Quote, inequality is a fake issue. Remember, there are 10 times more billionaires now than there were in 1980. When we adjust for inflation, we know that for the last 45 years, the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer. We know that the top 10% of people own 2/3 or more of all the wealth. And the bottom half of us, we own about 2.5%. That's a huge difference. Joe is working hard to make life better, but he's working hard to make life better for himself and his little in-circle of people. It's also clear that Joe believes that it's perfectly appropriate for him and for other fuckers at the top to run things. Here's another quote from Joe. You're always going to have certain celebrities who are more influential people, who are listened to more. It's not undemocratic to have celebrities. It's not undemocratic to have leaders in society. In another interview, he shared how he and some of his friends, we know everyone running everything. I believe him. These guys, they're running around running society for the betterment of all. They all know each other. right? I don't think it's a conspiracy. Like, that doesn't resonate with me. It's not a conspiracy. It's just that they all got the same job description, basically, which is create more millions of dollars for the millionaires and billionaire class. And these are the people that we're talking about when we say the fuckers at the top. That's exactly them. They take these beliefs like billionaires are good for all of us. Inequality is a fake issue. When jobs are destroyed, we all get wealthier. And they use them to, quote, fix the world. Oh, yeah. Through organizations that are called think tanks, like the Cicero Institute. Joe is chairman of the Cicero Institute, and he uses his money, his power, and his influence to create draft laws. And then he pushes them to become real laws across the country. This brings us back to the Safer Kentucky Act. So Cicero Institute, at Joe's leadership, they're busy. They're saying, okay, we're gonna write all of the we got lawyers. We're gonna write all this legal language and then bring it to state governments and say, look, it's ready to go. We know that this law will make things better in your state, so you need to implement it. You need to vote on it. We already did the homework for you. We have all the graphs. We have all the research. We got the lawyers to look at it. This is what you need. And the politicians are like, yeah, sounds good. Let's go. One, a lot of them are in the pockets of these wealthy billionaires. And two, they're just more concerned about being reelected than they are actually about the people that they serve. The Safer Kentucky Act that we spoke about earlier is one of these laws from Cicero Institute that makes it illegal to sleep outdoors. I've got some quotes from Cicero too. We've banned dangerous tent encampments in multiple states and cities. We've made it easier to civilly commit those who are mentally ill and need treatment. And we've pulled money from failed housing first programs. Okay, so alarm bells are ringing. Let's fact check some of this shit. Housing First programs are used by the VA to house veterans. I'm going to repeat that. Housing First programs are used by the VA to house veterans. This guy is pushing laws that take money away from housing. More from Cicero. To date, we've achieved legislative victories in 5 states on this issue of homelessness. Legislative victories, okay? With full overhauls in 2 states and many more in the pipeline. Recently, Joe and Cicero, they were part of a push to take the issue of homelessness all the way up to the Supreme Court to make it illegal for homeless people to camp on public land across the country. And the Supreme Court voted in favor of what Cicero and his boys were pushing. Here's another quote from Cicero Institute's Director of Communications. This historic ruling ensures that elected leaders have the ability to take action to improve community safety and protect property owners. This guy, Joe Lonsdale, man, he's got my attention. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's a good thing, but it is what it is. And there's one of his quotes here that I just wanted to throw out that I talked about earlier. And he asks the question, why go after billionaires? Are billionaires the root problem? He's asking this. What do you think about that?
I mean, hell yeah, it's the fucking problem. Look, there's millions of people all across the United States who are asking sincere fucking questions about where am I going to sleep at night. And this guy has more money than sin. Multiple houses, all of these kind of things. And it's like, how do you think that you got that? Like, you got that off the sweat of somebody else's work. That's why you're in the position that you're in. You dig somebody else over in order to get something for yourself. And this idea that, like, oh, billionaires are job creators and they earn that and stuff. You cannot earn and feel okay with that if you make more money than you're ever going to fucking spend. He could personally give $1 to every fucking person on earth who's living on less than $1 a day and double their income. Like, that's the kind of amount of money that we're talking about. It's hard to even wrap your head around, like, how big that is. Like, if it was a stack of dollar bills, like, you know, get somebody to do some geek math or whatever and figure out, like, oh, this is a width of a dollar bill or whatever, and just stack that dollar bill high, one by one by one. How fucking tall would that be?
Can we even calculate it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. So one of the things about Joe, right, is he's talking about how what he's doing, some of the quotes, his own words. It's not my interpretation of his words. He has said it, that he's doing what's best for all of us, right? He's helping to create a world that's good for everybody. I don't buy it just because I'm looking at the world from underneath the boot rather than, you know, on top of it.
Yeah, so what are you going to believe, Joe Lonsdale, or
Yeah.
your lying eyes?
Right, exactly. One of the things that always strikes me is how those messages, how they're tied into our society in such a way, if something goes wrong in my life, I'm sitting here and saying, oh man, I failed. I felt I made the wrong decision. And shit, I have felt this way. I've been standing in line, checking out for groceries and seen somebody who's struggling more than me, maybe paying with food stamps. And inside in the back of my head, there's like, wonder how they fucked up. You know what I mean? I ain't proud of it, but I learned the same lessons all of us have. I know that's not true and I got to work out of it, but that's what we keep getting taught, is that we got to punch the guy who's already down, punch myself if I screw up, but don't touch Joe.
Yep.
You know, because Joe's
Anybody
working
but
for
Joe.
all of us. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. One of the things that I think keeps that racket going, and like, it's a fucking racket, and people like Joe use it because it's been proven successful. It's worked
For them.
to bust stuff up
For them.
Yep, to neutralize a threat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, if I can get these people, fighting amongst themselves,
Yeah.
they're never going to point the finger at me.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. They'll be bickering over fucking God knows what, but they want whatever it is that they're bickering over, it won't be pointing the finger at me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's like part of it actually is on us when we fall for a rope-a-dope like that.
Yeah.
Right? I love Kentucky, you know, Muhammad Ali, fucking proud Kentuckian. Like, you cannot fall for a rope-a-dope like that. And if you do, like, you do bear some responsibility for that. But it's okay. You know, I've gotten my ass kicked a few times in my life. You know, sometimes, you know, you don't win, but you can't fucking keep just doing that over and over again. You really can't. You got to wise up. And that's the reality.
And that's the thing, though. Like you just said it, like blaming myself for falling for the spin
Yep.
is totally different than I'm not capable of taking care of myself. That they're making bad decisions. That's why they're poor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like falling for it is not the same thing as blaming myself.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Because I didn't build this system. I got born into it like the rest of us. And I'm struggling to do what I can to, you know, make ends meet for me and my family. And if I can't, I'm going to get mad at myself.
Yep.
I'm going to say, oh, well, I must be incapable. I must be a failure. I must be stupid. I must be whatever. Fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact is that a lot of us just don't have a lot of good choices. And we make the choice that's going to work for us in the moment because that's all we got is the moment. That's all we got.
I always, you know, when we go knocking doors and stuff like that, I hear something kind of like that a lot, where it's like, oh, I should have done, or I should have. And it's like, well, you know, if we keep shoulding on ourselves, then we're just going to keep being in a mess. And so you can't should all over yourself.
Right.
And it's hard not to, right? Because we're told, like, oh, that's what it means to be a man. And if you don't fucking live up to that, then you're a failure. You basically fucking have no reason to live. That's fucked up. So I always try and remind folks, like, you know, got the utilities shut off, and it's like, look, you do not deserve that.
Right.
Nobody deserves that.
Right.
You shouldn't have to wonder, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's going to get cold, and we ain't got no heat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what are we going to do? It's a heat wave. I ain't got no air.
Yeah.
Nobody deserves to go through that. And it doesn't have to be like that, because there's more, way more than enough.
Way more.
So I always try to remind people, because it ain't no sin to need reassurance every now and then from a neighbor or a friend or somebody you know. That ain't no sin to need reassurance, because for the most part, a lot of these things, they're not our fault. It's like kind of like what you said, we were born into something. Now, does that mean we don't have a choice about where do we go from there? Well,
Right.
No, we've got a choice to make. We have a choice to make. Do you want to keep taking it, or do you want to do something and make a difference? And do you want to push back? And so we remind people of that. We also try and remind people of, like, in that mix of, like, feeling like you got to blame yourself all the time. Like, man, the reason we are facing this eviction is because I fucked up and I didn't get the rent paid on time because I didn't make enough money, and that's all my fault. Sometimes, like, that can build this kind of, like, chip on your shoulder that is a lot to bear.
Yeah.
And over time, it'll get a whole lot easier to say, well, wait a minute. No, it's not my fault. But you know whose fault it is? It's that immigrant that came across the border,
Right.
And took my job.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's these women getting too mouthy, and not being in the home where they're supposed to be. And if they would just get back in the kitchen where they're supposed to be, then I would be able to be their breadwinner. It's their fault. It's black people's fault. I grew up in part Tennessee that I love dearly, and it ain't like we don't and haven't had our problems with blaming black people for all of the problems that somebody like me faces. That's like a tried and true fucking scapegoat of like, oh well, the reason that I can't get by is because black people are lazy or welfare queens,
Right.
and that kind of thing. And I like sometimes you don't realize that. Because we hear that, I've heard those messages my whole entire life. But you know what? When I was growing up, we weren't on welfare. But it's not because we didn't need it. It's because that program was destroyed before I was born.
Right.
We needed it. But we didn't get it because that program got destroyed. Why did it get destroyed? Because a bunch of people, instead of trying to really take a look at why did that happen, said black people's fault and black people are lazy. So it gets
taking advantage.
Yeah, it gets easy in that mix for people like you and me to get told, like, we got this chip on our shoulder, feeling like we're a failure, feeling like we didn't provide. That there will be people out there, and you hear it all the time, every day, and especially on the TV news or what have you, of like, yeah, what you're going through is bad, and you don't deserve that. Like I said, just like I said.
Yeah, right.
But you know who's to blame for that?
Yep.
It's those people, and then just fucking copy paste, just like Joe Lonsdale likes to do, of who those people are.
Yep. Yeah, it's constant. That to me is the key.
Yeah.
That is the key, is that when we come together with our neighbors who are immigrants, with our neighbors who are black, with our neighbors who look different than us, act different than us, whatever, but who are also struggling under this system, and we stop blaming them, we stop blaming ourselves, and we actually punch up at fuckers like Joe. Things happen. Things move. There's a history of it. All of the changes in this world, in this nation that we know, all of the things that have worked for the people have been when the people have come together to punch up against Joe and guys like him. I mean, he's not the only one out there. There's a bunch of them. We're going to talk about more later, but I mean, This is a common thing. In any community, I challenge anyone, any community you go into, you will find a fucker who's profiting off of the misery of others.